Here's the Up and Adam question of the day. Does the CEO of Target owe Governor Mark Dayton an explanation for the layoffs? Let us know what you think at TwinCitiesNewsTalk.com or on the Twin Cities News Talk Facebook page.
No!
You got to go to the website to answer.
No!
Welcome back to Up and Adam. I'm Jack Tomzak. That is Andrew Lee. Crime fighter.
Yeah.
Go to centralmediaservices.com/Up and Adam to see the live video feed of the show. Also, we've been tweeting out the links and it's on Facebook. Get to see what
Central Media Services, man.
Andrew looks like in a Batman mask for some reason.
Yeah, man.
Aaron Rupar.
Great job is all I'm saying.
With the Fox 9 had this story. I intended to get to it when he was in on Wednesday, but we didn't. 5 charged in connection with Ramsey County sex trafficking ring involving 16-year-old girl. 5 very special monsters listed in this story. 25 years old, 21 years old, 19, 38, 28 years old, and the victim is 16. Joining us now to talk about this and sex trafficking in Ramsey County is Ramsey County Attorney John Choi. Good morning, John. Someone needs to hit the...
John, you there?
Can you hear me?
There we go. Now I can hear you.
Great.
Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Yes, I'm happy to be on.
All right. What type in particular with this case, these 5 people who you're charging with sex trafficking of the 16-year-old girl, one, what kind of monsters are they?
Yeah, and they're just horrible people because these are people that are basically saying that they're going to basically coerce young people into what they're doing and then basically sell them for sex. And that's just a horrific thing that's happening all across America, but we should make no mistake, it really is happening here in Minnesota.
So what leads a group of people, a person, into the pimp side of sex trafficking, and what leads a person into the victim side of sex trafficking?
Well, I think with respect to the victim side, we know a lot about, we're starting to learn a lot about who these victims are, and it's all about vulnerability. Really, what it is it's these traffickers have this radar, and they just know exactly who to kind of focus on in terms of trying to coerce people to do what they want them to do. And oftentimes, the vulnerability starts with just age. So they're actually looking for teenagers. You know, in fact, the average age of first being prostituted is 13 years of age.
Oh, wow.
So that's incredibly young. That's the 7th grade. But the age, when you're not very old or you don't have that judgment, you can get caught up in all of this. And then secondly, then on top of that, the age, it's also about vulnerability. So if you've run away from home, a lot of the victims are runaways. They also have maybe connections to our foster care system. You know, they're probably running away from things at home. So these are victims that have gone through immense trauma probably throughout their lives. And so they're particularly vulnerable. And the traffickers really know how to kind of focus and target who they want. And then the traffickers, these individuals, I sometimes describe them as drug dealers who got smart, because this is all about greed and money.
Sure.
And so, you know, if they have a stable of victims that they can force to have sex, and then they get all the money. And in fact, in one of the victims in the complaint, she was forced to have sex with 7 men a day. And she would bring back about $400 to $500 for the traffickers. And this was a big case, but it's also so typical. We see this, you know, all the cases that we have in terms of the facts are alleged. I see this pretty routinely, and that's a really sad thing. So I think that's, you know, and the public should really know that this is happening throughout. And at the same time, too, you know, it's all about making money, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is all being funded entirely by men in our community who are okay with believing that, you know, to go online and buy a human being for sex. But keep in mind that when you are doing that, 40% of all of the people that are trafficked, they're children. And if you get caught with a child, I mean, you're going to be charged with a felony, and there's going to be huge consequences. But it's not just a consequence from a legal perspective, but it's a consequence to these victims, and you're also hurting your own family and yourself. And so and unfortunately, we have this anywhere in America where there's population, because this demand is out there. In fact, Jack, if you and I were to post an ad right now and say, and just put an ad on Backpage.com, you know, the phone would ring within 2 minutes, and it would just be ringing all day. And so the demand is out there. So then the traffickers, they want to make money, and so they oblige, and they go out and try to find these vulnerable people to traffic, and that's the sad part of all this.
Are there any efforts or outreach being made to young girls to sort of give them a heads up of the dangers
and make them aware?
Right. I mean, it's vulnerability that gets kids into this, but it's also, I think, there's a bit of ignorance as well, in that they don't realize exactly what they're getting themselves into and how dangerous a world it can be.
Yeah, in fact, oftentimes the victims get caught up in this. They're first groomed, so oftentimes when the trafficker is approaching them, it's kind of, hey, you look so pretty, and these vulnerable
you can make a lot of money.
Have low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And then they're susceptible to that. And then eventually the moment comes when the trafficker says, well, if you really love me, or if you really, if you want me to keep taking care of you, then this is what you're going to do for me. And then at some point they may want to get out of that situation, but they can't because of either the coercive control or just sheer violence or threats of violence, and sometimes violence that none of us could ever imagine.
Now, there are, of course, the profit motive on the pimp side of this, and the super complex and for the victim. But very simply, if the customers stop wanting this goes away.
Yeah, I think this is all being driven by the demand. I mean, wherever there's demand, like for instance in western North Dakota, they didn't really have this problem until, basically they had the population boom, and there's a lot of men up there working. Now we see our girls, our young vulnerable children here from our community that are being trafficked up there.
What's the consequences for a John caught with an underage prostitute? What happened? Let's scare some people, John.
It would be a felony crime. There have not been a lot of prosecutions in this particular area because it's hard to catch somebody in this situation because, first of all, typically how prostitution comes to light, usually in the adult setting where somebody has engaged an adult person, and that would be a misdemeanor or a gross misdemeanor depending on the facts. But typically it's going to be through like a police sting.
Okay.
And so it's an undercover cop, and that's how you get caught. But, a police department isn't going to employ an undercover or a minor as an undercover cop. Mm-hmm. So there hasn't been a lot of them, but typically we're getting better at investigating, and so now we're looking at digital evidence, getting a subpoena from Backpage.com, and so sometimes we can find this information. But the penalty if you're with a minor, it's a serious offense. I mean, it's a felony level crime. You're definitely going to have to register as a sex offender. I don't know. I don't think there's been enough of these to know exactly what judges would do. We had a case here in Ramsey County, and he was put on probation for a long time, and I think he had to serve the jail time that he already had served. And he was registered as a sex offender for 10 years. And it really kind of destroyed his career, too, because he had a good job, but his employer fired him.
Now, what happens in this case, in all cases, but what is going to happen to this young lady, this 16-year-old who was involved in this situation? Did she break a law? Is she a criminal herself, or is she treated as a victim?
Thank you for asking that question. One of the reasons why we've been, the police and prosecutors have been able to make a huge difference around this issue is because of the policy and law changes that have occurred. We used to actually say that this 16-year-old was a criminal also because she was engaged in prostitution. But now, today, the way that we see it is that this child is a victim of crime, and so we're trying to help her.
Yep.
And we've developed this victim-centered approach, and we're connecting her to services. And sometimes it's really tough to connect these victims to services because sometimes they may not want it, they may not understand that they need it. But over time, once they can get away from it, then they realize who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, and we can gain their trust and confidence. And then we can actually get these convictions against the traffickers because they will testify in court, and that's a really hard thing to do for if you think about that, to talk about your last sexual experience or whatever it might be. They have to have a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you listen every day, John, but early on in this show, we talked with the guys from the Ex-Offender Resources Network.
Oh, yeah, I did. Actually, I caught that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to make it easier for people to get away from a life of crime, then they're just going to go back to it. Nobody wants that. So I hope situations where prostitutes who are trying to get out, I hope there are ways that they can be helped. Because, yes, they are victims. They may have broken the law, but they are not the criminals here. They are the victims of other really horrible people.
If you're over the age of 18, the stories for all of these individuals, they were first victimized when they were children.
Yep.
So...
Best of luck to you in fixing this problem. I don't know. It doesn't go away until the demand goes away.
That's right.
So guys out there if this is your thing, stop it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ramsey County Attorney John Choi.
Thanks for having me on, Jack. Take care.
Thank you for saying yes. All right. When we come back, we'll talk with Ben Johnson. Now, that last issue, it's very easy for all of us to feel superior to the folks involved in this. Mm-hmm. And we all do. 99% of people don't use prostitutes. Don't use underage prostitutes. But there are those folks out there. Are they listening to this show? Probably not. But I guess I don't know that.
You might be surprised.
But they're children.
Yeah.
You're hurting children.
Right.
And you're not hurting them while you're having sex with them. You're hurting them in their brain for
the rest of their lives.
When we return, let's lighten it up a little bit. Ben Johnson with the City Pages.
Up and at 'em.
My friends told me to listen. I'm not sure why.
On Twin Cities News Talk, AM 1130.
From the